There we go.
Now that's a technology choice you just made, Julie. Tell us why you just decided to do that.
Well, we decide to record our presentations because only a select group of our colleagues can make the Tuesday 12 to 1 slot. And this way we can make our materials available to the entire Hunter community and beyond, that they can watch the presentation at whatever time is good for them.
Now that's an interesting technology choice, Julie. And in a little bit, we're going to be asking you to place it on a framework that we use in integrating technology. And you're going to tell us where it sits in that hierarchy. So I just want to welcome everyone. I'm very excited to be able to co-present today with my colleague and our CUNY colleague over at Lehman, Natasha Nurse-Clarke is here, and I will be giving a little bio about her when she takes over the mic in a few moments. I'm just going to kind of open us to this conversation, and then we'll have a chance to hear from Natasha. So I am like loving seeing Daniel. I see Vicky. I see Stephanie. And who else am I seeing? I see Xiao. It's wonderful to see some of your faces, and some of you have chosen not to show your face, which is totally cool. Okay, Carlene, I guilted her into it. And it's absolutely fine, right? You have some control. Brenda, yay, Brenda. Gwendolyn, yay, Gwendolyn. You eat, lady, you enjoy your lunch. This, the whole point of this is for us to have lunch together. I'm having my coffee with you. But there's absolutely no pressure, of course, to turn on your camera. But this is one of the few technology choices your students get to make because we've pretty much chosen almost everything that happens when we deliver, let's say, an online session, or even when we have an asynchronous session with students, you know, and we set up an experience for them. We've pretty much made all the choices for them. So this is kind of their only choice is, do I turn on my camera or not? Hi, Amber, nice to see you. So it's totally up to you. Of course, it's beautiful to see your faces. Now, Tara, no worries. No showers is no problem. See, this is a good thing about technology as well. So I'm going to jump into our topic today and just kind of give us some ideas to think about. Here we go. I'm going to share my screen, and this is another controlling thing I'm going to do, right? I share my screen on you, and it makes everything either disappear or you have to struggle to find where is everybody again, because Laura took over my screen. So take a moment. I'm doing the same thing. I kind of adjusting everything. So you can minimize my shared screen or click escape or view it a bit smaller so you can still see all of us as well as the screen. Hey, Christine, welcome. Okay, so the title of our session today, Will Paper and Pencil Work Best? Matching tech tools with instructional purposes. The reason that we wanted at ASSERT to offer this topic was really just to take a pause moment, because last year, or like the year and a half or the last 3 years, however long this thing has been such growth for us, so many new tools. We've all of us have tried new tools or gone further with tools that we used before. So it's kind of, I think we all thought it would be a good time to sort of step back and say, okay, why are we choosing the tools we're choosing? Are there other tools that could work better? Do I even need this tool? Because some of us are returning to classes or we're returning to offices if we're staff and working with students. So what aspects of this technology boom that we've been in do we want to, build on and continue with, and which other ones we can really abandon and not feel bad about it, but just know what our purposes are. And there's also a part of us that has unleashed this hunger for more tools. And that's why I'm bringing Natasha in, because she has so many great ideas. So let's get into the session a bit. There's a really nice book called Pencil Me In. And it's a work of fiction. Raise your hand if you've seen this book. It's kind of cool. It's essentially a fictionalized version of what's happening today with people trying to get us to use tech tools and some of us wanting to resist that. And a quote from the first beginning of the book. So I'm going to have you just use your ears right now, just use our sign language interpreters to help us just absorb the first couple lines of the book. So he starts out in this novel and he says, I must have been 10 years old when I bought my first pencil and held it in my clunky hands. For the first time, I could sketch a world of gray, lacking permanence and open to change. It was a medium that fit my life, leaving the red rock west for the flat agrarian haven of Kansas and into the industrial smokestacks of this city. Gray movement. So it's sort of an ode to the pencil. And in the book, he struggles with people who still want to use slate and chalk, and they resist the pencil. Why the pencil? So I know a lot of us have heard about, well, pencils are sort of the first technology. And we're in this moment too right now where, isn't a pencil good enough? Isn't the chalk and slate good enough? And yes, it is, right? In a lot of cases, and maybe even better. So in this session, we're thinking about, and I like this quote to frame us or kind of orient us. The technology you use impresses no one. The experience you create with it is everything. And I know a lot of us have heard this idea of tasks before tools. I know Xiao has taught us that, choose the learning outcomes, the learning experience first, and then look for tools. But what's funny is sometimes I find that it's the tool that gives me the idea for a new task. So I don't think it has to be strictly think of your task in a void. Don't think about any tools, just think of your task and then go around and find a tool. Sometimes it really works the other way. And right now we've just been immersed, just awash with tools, and they've sparked a lot of new ideas and new ways of doing the business of instruction. So I'm going to walk you through 4 super quick asks. All right. So first, what I'd like you to do is I'm going to call your name. If you could tell me where you work or what your role is. Okay. I'm going to start with Brenda.
I work at Lehman College at the nursing department, and I'm assistant professor, tenure track.
Wonderful. I had a feeling because of your picture back there, but I didn't want to make any, jump to conclusions. Okay. How about Daniel?
I'm an adjunct in psychology at Hunter.
Wonderful. How about Carlene?
I work in research administration at Hunter, and I manage the personnel on research grants.
Yes, she pays us. We love Carlene. How about Maria Elena?
Hello, Laura. Hello, everybody. Maria Helena Hayes. I work in the psychology department. I'm the director of student academic advising in psychology. Thank you, Heido.
Wonderful. Okay. How about Vicki?
I'm Vicki Lenz. I'm a professor at the Silberman School of Social Work.
Okay, wonderful. Now I'm going to stop there, right? Because this is going to take too long, right? Okay, so let's try it this way. If you could go to your chat, the name will appear. So just tell us where you work, what your role is quickly in the chat. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. I like that, Vicky. I said 30 seconds, so it became the school social work, which makes it sound kind of Irish, and I like it. I think we should go with it. Okay. Fabulous. Now I'm gonna go one more with you. I'm going to give you a link to a Padlet. Okay, this is the link. I'm putting it in the chat. Now I need you to grab a picture. It can be of you or just a picture you like that's just easy to get because it's right there on your computer. Pop in a picture and tell us who you are. Make the title of your Padlet post your name like I did. And you can say where you work. I'm going to give you a few seconds to work on that. Maybe about a minute. I should have gotten my music ready, but let me get some music over here. Spotify. Doctor, my eyes have seen the years in the slow parade of fear. Woo, Vicky! Now I want to understand. I have done all that I could. God, we're good looking. Oh, Brenda's happy place. We are really good looking. Okay, you can keep on working on that. And those of you who are just coming in, we're going to do one last thing. We're going to be still on this Padlet, okay? So if you're still finding something to post, or you just want to post text, or you want to search for a photo online because you don't have a photo there, totally great, whatever. I want you to find someone else and use the comments area and post a comment, okay? All right. So I'm going to give you a moment to do that. All right. Love it. So you can take a moment, and if you were able to pop your own image up there, that's great. And if you haven't, find someone here and make a comment for them under their picture. Jack. Oh, it's Baecher. Isn't that Baecher? Okay. All right. Fabulous. Okay. So now we probably want to play over here for a while now, but we are in the midst of this assert session. So we're going to go back over here. But I want you to notice in your, not to take it too far, but in your body, it's just your psyche. How is it different? The first, the second, the third, and this final experience. Amber, what is she carrying? Okay, so what we just walked through is the levels or steps on a model called the Sammer model, which is like really widely known in educational technology. And when I came across it, I really liked it because it made a lot of sense to me. And it helped me push assignments further up towards maybe greater transformative qualities. So I'm just going to walk you through this really quickly. The first level is substitution. And by the way, none of these levels are bad or good. They just are. And in sometimes when you're choosing a technology, you don't need to really change anything. You just need to substitute. So for example, right now, we are not all sitting in 1203 East, as I always say, eating the bad wrap sandwiches. We are all on Zoom. We are using Zoom simply to substitute. And yet there are some changes functionally that happen when we go to Zoom. But so the first thing we did when I said, tell me who you are, raise your hand, that was the same as if we were sitting right in front of each other. You know, tell me who you are. We would go around a circle, right, and share our names. The next thing we did is at the level of augmentation. It's a substitute with maybe a little bit of an improvement. I said, go to the chat and put in your name, because the first way can be hard for people because it takes a long time. Maybe they didn't quite hear, or they're going to forget, or someone comes late and they've missed it. So with the chat, I can actually introduce more people at the same time. So maybe there's a functional improvement there than just having people say hello. The third level is modification, some kind of significant task redesign. So instead of just saying, hey, Christine, tell us about you, I said, go to the Padlet, post a picture, and write something. So it really changes the activity. It brings in the visual. It could bring in multimodal, because with Padlet, of course, there's the visual, the text. Jack has a moving image. I could also have voice as well here, voiceover. So there's a lot of different possibilities. The last level, when I said, now go comment on somebody's, that is really something we couldn't have done before. Because if we were all in the room together and you each raised your hand, I could then say, okay, now let's go around and make a comment about each person, but it would take the entire session. So it probably wouldn't be strategically a great use of time. Also, what if someone's not there? What if Maria Elena has to work with a student and she misses something? How can she still participate? Well, here, this becomes something that I can come back to later. I can say, who was that person? Carlene, yeah, and I can add more and return to it. It becomes something more than just that moment of instruction. And you notice there's something that happens in terms of just my task, which was getting to know you. When we do a getting to know you and we each have to say something, people get a bit anxious. They're not sure, are they going to be called on? They're not sure how much should they say or not say. It's hard to focus on other people because you're kind of focused on yourself. But as I made it more creative, more externalized with the other props of a picture and some time built in, you can focus more on what you want to say, perhaps your message. And we're getting a feeling of community right here on this Padlet, even though we've only been together about 20 minutes. There's a different sensibility that comes through creating objects like this that technology can afford. Whoops, I'm jumping ahead of myself. So let me go back to here for a second. The way that we're going to think about for the remainder of our little time together today is that if a tool is a direct substitute and doesn't change anything and works really well for you, there's no reason to move it up to something else. But sometimes when you do think about what more could this do, what are other opportunities, or what they like to say affordances, then you might decide to use a different tool. Now, that whole process of that thinking is part of what is called the TPAC model, the technology, pedagogy, content, knowledge kind of coming together. A lot of you probably have heard about Schulman's model of content knowledge, and pedagogical knowledge, or PCK. So for example, Julie's an expert on Dante, an Italian professor. She knows all about that. That's her content. But she also knows about teaching techniques, instructional techniques and practices, and she puts them together and has both pedagogical knowledge or instructional knowledge as well as her content knowledge. And the technology knowledge that she also has and has acquired overlaps as well. Sometimes her technology knowledge is only really important in terms of the Italian scholarship she's doing. Sometimes her technology knowledge is really important just because of the teaching, no matter what she's teaching. Sometimes it integrates all three. And so you see, it's very complex what we're doing. We're bringing out content knowledge related to psychology, to nursing, whatever our field is. We're thinking about instructional approaches, but we're also thinking about where does technology interact with that? And to say we don't need to use technology, well, remember the pencil. We needed the pencil, right? So we need and we function with a certain amount of technology, even if we're back in person, right? Don't we use Blackboard? I mean, even if all of our classes are face-to-face, we're always thinking about technology. Okay. Another model that can be helpful, and I think it connects to where Natasha's going to go, is from the instructional design realm. And this is attributed, or this guy, Dave Merrill, I think he's maybe from Australia. This model helps us also plan instruction. So when we're thinking about, let's say, a session we're teaching next week, a module we're creating, okay, we can think also about how does technology help us have more of a real world problem-based approach? How can we bring in the world to the classroom, giving students real life situations where they can be generative, create new knowledge, and connect it to the world, sort of a 21st century learner frame. And that's also something that we can almost only get through technology, because if we stay with only the people who can raise their hand and speak at this moment versus Julie recording this session, us having a Padlet, us being able to connect to the whole world, we can see where our design and our choices of tools are going to continue to push us towards student-generated knowledge, students using the technology. So remember at the very beginning, I said sometimes the only choice the student makes is, do I turn my camera on or off? But we want students to be able to make as many choices as we are with technologies. Okay, so that's the end of my slides. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment, and I want to let Natasha be able to pull up her slide deck, and I'm going to introduce you, Natasha, while you do that. I found Natasha. I stalked Natasha / found Natasha. We're both involved in a, I guess it's sort of a loose professional association or group called Professors at Play. And it brings in lots of different playful technologies and approaches into higher ed teaching. And we participated in a day-long conference recently, and we're on a listserv together. And I noticed that she had this website, and I went to it, and then I realized she's at Lehman. So I got so excited, and I realized she went to Hunter, but let me introduce her. So Dr. Natasha Nurse-Clarke, her name is Nurse. She knows that. She understands she's also a nurse. Okay. She is a registered nurse with a background in neonatal nursing, perinatal grief counseling, and nursing education. Dr. Nurse-Clarke currently serves as an assistant professor in the Department of Nursing at Lehman College, CUNY, where she is a leader in online education. She currently runs a virtual community for online educators and hosts a blog called The Online Educator, which is really beautiful, and we'll share the link to that. So thank you so much, Natasha, for coming back to your roots at Hunter. She went to Hunter's nursing school, and we're very excited that you've brought some Lehman colleagues along. We welcome all of our Lehman friends as well. So thank you so much, Natasha.
And thank you so much, Laura, for the invitation to be here. I'm really excited to be here. Like you said, I graduated from Hunter, so that's always great. And I'm at Lehman, so thanks so much for all of my Lehman colleagues who were able to be here today as well. Just as a preface, excuse the gardener outside if you do hear him. But let me share my screen. And my presentation I'm doing today is in Canva. If you're not familiar with Canva, it is a graphic design website that is very fun. It has a whole educational section in it as well. So you can always check out that site, and you can present from right within the tool. So that's always fun as well. So Laura gave you a really great background for using technology when it's needed. How do you know? She really walked us through escalating different types of technology. And I'm gonna just continue where she left off. So really the focus, I have two goals for us today. One is to explain how you can select an appropriate educational technology tool. And the other is to show you a little bit of how you can match a tool with your particular learning outcomes. So to do that, I'm going to be using another framework. You're learning a lot of frameworks today. This one is called the Sections Framework, and it was developed by Baecher. And it's really a framework for choosing and using media in education. Now, at the end of this presentation, there is references, and there is a link to Baecher's book that talks about this framework. It's an open educational resource, so it's completely free. You can read it online, you can download it, and that is linked at the end of this presentation, and the presentation will be shared with everyone. So sections stands for students, ease of use, cost, teaching, education, integration, organizational issues, networking, and security and privacy. And I'm going to walk us through each of these very briefly because it's really going to give you an idea of how best to choose a good educational technology tool. So the first thing is students. You want to think about who your students are. So 2 points here. One is accessibility. You want to make sure that the tool you're using is accessible to all students. So you don't want to leave some students out. You don't want to make it a tool that maybe it doesn't have certain features that students might need. And I think about like nowadays with kids in school, apparently, I don't have any little kids anymore, so apparently there's a whole section either in the grocery store or a pharmacy that has a section that says school-friendly treats. So that when kids go to school, it's treats that everybody can eat. You don't have to worry about allergies or, students, kids that can't eat certain things. So I think about that with educational technology tools. You want to make sure everybody is able to use it. And on that same link there, you want to think about digital readiness. Are your students able to navigate certain technologies? So for instance, I teach in a fully online program. So I expect my students to have a certain level of digital readiness because they are willingly coming in to a fully online program. That doesn't mean that everybody knows everything. But when I teach the very first early courses, for us, it's 300 level courses, I don't start with a whole lot of technology. I still kind of ease students in. But as I get towards the end of the program, the higher 400 level courses, I might be using a little bit more technology. I expect that students have been integrating technologies with their learning, using technologies throughout the program, so they might be a little bit more advanced. So think about that digital readiness. A lot of our schools have a digital readiness program for students. They either take a quiz or go through some type of a very brief course to make sure that they're ready. So think about that when you're choosing your technology. The next thing is ease of use. And there was a study that I did recently with a colleague of mine, and we used something called the technology acceptance model. And it was a very interesting model because it has two main concepts that can pretty much predict whether someone will adapt to technology. One of those concepts is ease of use, and the other is perceived usefulness. So is this tool useful? But when you think about ease of use, is it easy for your students to be able to use it? Set up requirements. A lot of tools require students to download something. And then sometimes students don't know where it downloaded. How do I access it? And think about the first time you may have used Zoom or Blackboard Collaborate. You have all of these permissions you have to do, allow permission to use your microphone, allow permission to use your video. Sometimes those things can be confusing. And also tech support. Does the tool itself have tech support associated with it? Does the school have tech support for this tool? And multi-use. This one is really important. I love to use tools that are multi-purposeful. So there is certain appeal to one tool that can do one thing, because it usually can do that one thing really well. But if you can find 1, 2, 3 tools that you can use for multiple purposes, it'll be better for you and for your students as well. Next, you want to think about costs. Obviously, is there a financial cost? Because that's always a worry. But you also want to think about costs in terms of time. How much time is it going to take you to learn how to use this tool? And then the time that it takes to prepare the assignment. I know when I start to use a new tool, I like to create sort of like a sample assignment for students so they can see exactly what I want them to do. And that takes time, right? So I have to learn the tool, I have to create the assignment, and I got to make a sample assignment. All of these things cost time. So weigh that also when you're selecting your tool. And also you may want to think about similar options. So as I mentioned before, there's an appeal to using one tool that can do one thing. But if you look at these multi-purpose tools, and I'll show you a few of them, sometimes they can do what that tool can do, maybe not as well, but you might be able to adapt it. So think about some alternate similar options as well. Now for teaching and learning factors, we're going to camp here just for a minute because I think this is really important. What are your learning outcomes? What are you trying to accomplish with this tool? Are you using it just because it looks fun or flashy? You know, you want to think about that end goal in mind, and Laura talked a lot about that. So think about, does this tool align with your learning objectives? And on that point, there is, when you get these slide decks, it is clickable. It's a PDF, but it's clickable. When you click on Technology Teaching Toolkit, there's a little tool that I created, I adapted from the Arizona State University website. And they have a tool that looks something similar to this. And it uses Bloom's taxonomy as a way of classifying certain digital tools that you can use for assignments. So I took it because I liked it, and I adapted it in that I created these little icons, and they are also clickable. So when you click on an icon here, it will take you to an educational technology tool that aligns with that particular objective. So for anyone who's not familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, it is a way of classifying or categorizing learning objectives. And it does this from an area of low thinking skills, lower order thinking skills, to higher order thinking skills. So you can see at the bottom of this list here is remembering, the category of remembering, all the way up to creating. And there are different things that you can do at different levels within this taxonomy. Now, I do want to preface this by saying you can use many of these things in different categories. It's not just relegated to the one category that I have it listed here, but this was a nice way of presenting it for you. So I want to show you a couple of examples. And by the way, some of these can be a little bit of a quest for you because some of them link to multiple items. So some of them, when you click on the word, it'll take you to one place. And when you click on the icon, it'll take you to another place. Some of them will only take you to one place. So that should be some fun hunting for you when you get that. But let me give you an example. So for instance, let's look at sharing. I have a lot of sharing happening in my courses. So one tool that I love, and I told you I have a couple go-to tools. One of those go-to tools is VoiceThread. So when I click on sharing, when you click on sharing as well, it will take you to the VoiceThread website and you can learn more about it. as it says on the screen here, it's pretty much having conversations around media. You can bring in a picture, you can bring in a video and have discussions around it. And I love it because especially in courses I teach, asynchronous online courses, students can do it at any time. And when you click on the icon here, it's going to take you to an example of an assignment that I created in VoiceThread. That's also pretty fun. It's called the Congressional Squares, and I stole this idea from a K-12 community where they had an example of this using Sesame Street characters. But I brought it in, and I'm using it for my health policy course. Forgive my computer for loading so slow. But I brought it in for a health policy course, and really the idea behind it is there's a bunch of let me go to the next slide so you can see. There's a lot of congressional figures that are listed in their little squares. And the students get to select figures. They have to select three, 3 across, 3 down, the tic-tac-toe fashion. They can select all of them if they want. And then they scroll to a slide of the person that they selected. And on that slide, it has one of their beliefs or ideas. And the student now has to say, do they agree with it? Do they disagree with it? And they have to explain why. So you can see how this tool VoiceThread has students having conversations around this particular media, but it does it in a more fun and engaging way rather than me just saying, hey, this is what this person thinks. What do you think? And it's, again, nice for an asynchronous class. Another one I'll show you here is presenting. I love presenting. I love having students make presentations. One tool, another go-to tool that I use a lot for that is Google Slides. It's easy to use and it's very accessible. We have a Microsoft partnership here at CUNY, so we have access to Microsoft PowerPoint online, same thing. You can use them both or either one to suit your purposes. And another one I wanted to share, so for this one, when you click on the icon, it'll take you to another place. This is a website where people go to make poster presentations. And I thought this was a really great tool. I teach a research course sometimes, for students to come in here and create a research poster or any kind of poster related to a course you might be teaching. Now this site, they have to buy the poster and have it shipped to them. You're not gonna have your students do that, but they can create the poster, they can take a screenshot of it, they can download it and share it within the course. So that's another type of way that you can use something like presenting. Another area here is testing. So for testing, I like this tool called Edpuzzle. I haven't been able to actually use it yet. That is definitely on my to-do list, but I love it because it's a way that you can turn videos into lessons. And again, because I teach asynchronously, this becomes really important for me. So I can create a video and then at different points in the video, I can stop, pause, pop in a question that I want students to answer before they move on to the next part of the lesson. So this is really great because it builds, again, that interaction there and also helps me to know if students are understanding what I'm teaching them since I'm not with them in real life to make that assessment. And then also another example I wanted to show you here. This is an example, again, I got from a nice K-12 educator group. And it's a play off of The Price is Right, which you can see on the screen. And I called it The Research is Right. And pretty much students have to pick if a question is qualitative or quantitative. But I'll play a little bit of it because it's got cool sound effects and everything. So then when the student clicks on a slide to move forward, they'll read the question on the screen. What is the effect of interruptions while nurses are giving medications on the number of medication errors they make? So let's say I obviously know the answer. So if I pick quantitative. Bam! Just like that. That's all there is to it, Dustin. That's all there is to it. So we get the nice little background music that makes it more fun and engaging. Again, I can do this in Blackboard using the testing option. If you have a face-to-face class, you can just ask these questions. But if you're teaching in an asynchronous environment, again, this makes it a little bit more fun and engaging. Again, if they do get it wrong, but it's still kind of fun because it's got the nice background music and it continues that way. Another area I'll show you is this area of networking. Now, networking is really important. I linked here to LinkedIn because I teach in a professional capacity and I like students to be able to see professional examples of things like social media. But other things for networking, I have them do this activity inside of the course with each other. So the first week of classes we do, and again, all of these things that I'm showing you, they're all in Google Slides. Or yeah, most of these are Google Slides. So again, another one simple go-to tool that I can use to do all of these things. They're just slides. So we do our introductions and everybody comes in, I make them do VoiceThread introductions. They introduce themselves and share something important about themselves. But then to make sure that students are actually listening to it, I create this little bingo card. It's called Getting to Know You Bingo. I listen to all of the introductions and I create this little bingo card with characteristics of the students in the class. And then I make the students go in and fill out this bingo card. So now they really have to listen to all of the introductions that their fellow colleagues have made. And they either have to do one full line down, across, diagonal. Most of them do the entire card, which is really, really fun to see. So the students do really enjoy this. And then they submit this as an assignment in Blackboard. I'll just show a couple more. I want to be mindful of the time. So one that I kind of made up is under applying. I created this escaping, and that's because I'm really intrigued by these digital escape rooms now that we're using a lot in nursing education. I'm not sure if we're using it in other areas. I know K-12 areas using it a lot. And that will link to Google Forms. And most of the escape rooms that I have seen are using Google Forms. If you're not familiar with escape rooms, they were back when we were face-to-face, these places where you could go, you get quote unquote locked in a room with your friends or strangers perhaps, and you have a series of puzzles or riddles or really puzzles that you have to solve before you can escape the room. So it has gone digital. It has really gone digital with COVID, but it went digital a lot in the K-12 area first. And now we're seeing a lot of digital escape rooms, and they're really easy to make using Google Forms. And if anybody is interested in creating them, when you click on the escape icon, it'll take you to a link that has some resources for how to design escape rooms if you're interested. Okay, moving right along. Another one I wanted to show you is this infographics. Infographics are a great way to kind of chunk information in manageable pieces and also make sure that students are learning well. So one tool that I linked to here is called PictoChart that you can use to create infographics, but you can also use this tool that I'm using right now, which is Canva, which is where I made this infographic that's also linked in this presentation. It also has some fun links in it. So it has information about making humanized communications with students in online courses, helping students connect with course content, helping students connect with each other, and then a couple more resources that you can click to. So I can sit here and talk about all of these things, but a nice takeaway for you is you've got this infographic and you can click and see different resources in it. It's a nice way of chunking information. And the last thing I'll share with you before we continue is this interactive media. And I like interactive media because, again, it helps with engagement. Students can be reading and they click on something. So even like this document that I'll share with you today, you can just continue to click on it. And sometimes you don't even realize how much you're learning, but there's so many things here on the screen that you can be learning. So one tool that I link to here is called Genially. And this is a really robust tool. And the image here, the icon, will link you to a great site called Ditch That Textbook. Again, this is in the K-12 arena, but they're light years ahead of us. But it will link you to a bunch of ways that you can use this tool Genially to do lots of different things. Create digital escape rooms, create infographics, virtual field trips, lots of fun, cool things. Okay, so let's get back to the main presentation. And again, that idea of making sure your tools are aligned with your learning objectives. And this technology teaching toolkit is something that you can help when you're trying to see, how can I do something maybe that's fun and different and align with this particular objective? Okay, so now interaction. Does the tool allow for interactions? And there's two main interactions that you want to be concerned with. One is student-to-student interaction, and one is instructor-to-student interaction. So instructor to student, you're thinking about a tool like this, Zoom, or maybe Blackboard Collaborate. And student to student is our great learning management system, allows for a lot of this. But also you can think about alternatives. So for instance, I used a tool once where students were creating these nice online newsletters, but it didn't really allow for interactions. So we can use our existing learning management systems, and I had students put a link to their newsletter, and then in the discussion board, they can have discussions about each other's newsletter. So there's always alternatives if you pick a tool that does not include some type of interaction. O is for organizational issues. This is really important because sometimes you may not be able to use a tool if there are really big organizational issues. So for instance, do you have the tech support for it? Sometimes the tool itself will come with tech support, but sometimes some things need to be provided by the institution. Also, do they have support for faculty? You guys have a great teaching and learning center here that I'm sure provides lots of support. And I'm sure you've got websites within the college that also provide support for using technology tools. And sometimes there are institutional licenses. I believe all of the CUNY schools have licenses to VoiceThread, which again, I told you is one of my go-to tools I use a lot. But some have licenses with other tools. You'll see in that technology toolkit, there's a link for annotating. So a tool called Hypothesis, which is, I know, an annotating tool that a lot of people really enjoy. And these are things that can be embedded into your learning management system if there is an institutional license. And then networking. I talked a little bit about networking when I brought up the tech tool, but integrating with others, learning from others. There's, particularly in the area that I teach, I like students to get to know professional nurses, other nursing students, and making those kinds of connections can be really helpful for them developing their own idea of the career that they want or the way that they want to practice their profession. And the last S is for security. So right off of that topic on networking, we also want to make sure that we're using tools that are safe and secure. So maybe a student is not comfortable going onto a LinkedIn site or Twitter. Twitter is very big in education right now. They may not be comfortable with it. You may not be comfortable with it. And it's certainly not something that is private. So you want to think about security risks as well and identify if there are any risks or potential risks for students. Also, you may have a policy in your school that doesn't allow for something like that. So it's important to be aware of any institutional policies. And then you can think about alternatives. I've learned about now, again, through that K-12 arena, that there are fake Facebook sites or fake Twitter sites, or you can even create your own slides. I've seen slide decks that is a mock of what a Facebook profile would look like. And then students just have to edit it with, for once we did it, I did an activity where I told students they were going to be a nursing theorist. and they had to create a Facebook page for this nursing theorist. So they picked the nursing theorist, they created the first page, then it was, the friends page. Who would your friends be? What images would you post? What type of posts would you make or comments would you make? So those are nice ways to integrate it into education without posing some of those safety and security risks. Okay, final tips I want to leave with you. Start with just one tool. Don't get overwhelmed by the list that I share with you and try to do all things. Start with one tool. Maybe there's one tool that really intrigues you and you want to learn more about it. Or alternatively, you can start by picking one assignment that you have in your course that maybe it's time to be revamped, or maybe it's a new course that you're teaching. So start with one assignment and see, okay, this is the assignment. Is there a way that I can use educational technology with this assignment? Again, with the title of this assignment, maybe you don't need a technology tools, but you can always think about it. And another tip, if you're feeling overwhelmed, your students will feel overwhelmed too. So if you're starting to feel overwhelmed, take a step back. Sometimes paper and pencil is better. For a course that I taught, when I was doing lectures, I created worksheets for students, and they had to fill in the worksheets by hand. They couldn't type it, they couldn't copy it, they had to do it by hand and hand it in to me for me to correct, because I saw the importance of it for that particular assignment. And the last tip is to have fun with it. You've got this, I'll share with that technology teaching toolkit. You can play around with different tools, make it fun, make it interesting for you. And that's it. If you have any questions, I will take them. If you want to reach out to me, my email is here. And then those resources that I mentioned, this is the book from Baecher that talks about this sections framework. And I will this is the link to that tool. I told you I created that technology toolkit based on Bloom's digital taxonomy with some more information there. And that is included in the slide deck for this.
Oh my God, Natasha, everyone you just are amazing, amazing. And I know we only have a couple of minutes left. Pop your questions in the chat and I'll try to grab a couple. Christine had a question about, you mentioned linking that kind of slideshow, game show, quiz thing to Blackboard. Do you actually embed it in Blackboard, or how do you get around the janky Blackboard quiz creator factor?
So,
or do they do it separate and then you just bring it over? Get any ideas?
Yeah, absolutely. I do it separate. For that quiz, that was, I wouldn't even say a low stakes quiz. It's not graded. It's a quiz just for students to play with, really. Go in there and learn about the difference between quantitative and qualitative. So it's not graded. So I don't have to be able to track it. And the great thing about it is students can do it over and over again, which is great. I also do something like that with the syllabus. You know how difficult it is to get students to read the syllabus. So there's another similar Google Slides where I'll ask a question like, what day will I hold office hours? When is your first assignments due? And they can just click multiple choice and be directed and redirected to different slides. So if you want it to be something that is going to be graded and a part of their grade, you probably want to stick with the Blackboard tool, the Blackboard testing tool. But there's a lot of ways to embed very, very low stakes, low stress quizzes in courses.
Mm-hmm.